So I'm really pleased with a lot of Americans finding about us Black Scottish people. And there've been a lot of questions coming in. It's been absolutely great. And the two main ones I want to answer right now. I currently live in Glasgow. And yes, we do have fried chicken and watermelons. So we're just like you, really. Nothing different. Catchies.
Hi lovelies, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Belinda Verse or Belly Dirt channel. Don't forget to please subscribe to this channel, turn on notifications so that anytime I upload videos, you will be the first person to be notified. To my returning subscribers, to those people that share my videos, leave commentaries, and educate each and every one of us, you guys are the real MVP. So lovelies, I'm gonna be your today's host, and I have so many statistics to put up here, and we are gonna come out to talk about it. Alright lovelies, let's dive into today's video.
All the girls that's here for the truth, come put both hands on a DJ booth, then wind your waist to the big man sound, and I get too stiff cause the thing's too round. Good God, make me lift up your gown, but your face so sweet, wanna spin you around. If I go late gang, I'll bring you around. If I go to the bar, I'll bring you around. Which one?
Simply put, because all skin folk ain't kinfolk. It could be the lack of acknowledgement of Black culture, Black American culture as an actual culture and a unique experience cultivated and curated just for us that ruffles our feathers a little bit. And no, we're not a monolith. Not all Black Americans feel this way. Not all Black Brits feel this way. But it is interesting that they choose not to acknowledge that Middle Passage, slavery, colonization just wasn't a thing. As if our ancestors willingly got on a boat and decided to get rid of their languages, their religion, break up their families, and be persecuted and oppressed for 300 plus years, only to get out of slavery, enter into Jim Crow, travel into police brutality and all of that, and, you know, have it trickle down all the way for future generations until it hits mine and then my child's. I mean, it could be that. I don't know. Let me know. Or the fact that they only have to go back 1 or 2 generations to figure out where they come from, and their families willingly or unwillingly, depending on the situation, migrated to the UK, and that's why they know where they are, and that's why they can acknowledge that they're Caribbean, or that they're Haitian, or that they're African, or that they come from somewhere else. I mean, and I think even pettier than that, we'll never trust anybody that eats beans on toast, because why? And I think that the reason that Black Americans have gravitated towards Black Scottish people is because neither one on either side is trying to diminish the other's experience or cultural experience. It's reciprocal, it's peaceful, it's nice, it's respectful. That's why. Simply put, because all skin folk ain't kinfolk. It could.
Why do you like Black Scottish people, but you have a problem with the Africans in America, though?
And the UK, but Scotland is in the UK.
Same thing. You out here like cousins, but with the Africans in America, some of y'all have a problem. It's kind of funny. Same thing with like the UK Africans too, right?
Guess y'all just don't like London people.
That one is kind of justified. I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know the history of the beef, but I hope you guys understand how it works with Black people in every country. Usually they're Africans or immigrants, 4th generation, 5th generation, whatever. That's kind of how it happens every time you see an African person or a Black person, unless, you know, they're like Aboriginal, indigenous, you know, not actually African, like they're just like melanated. That would be an exception. Australian Aborigines, for a group of Black people to exist somewhere that isn't Africa, right, means that they're probably Africans that left Africa to go to that country. That's why a lot of people, you know, say that Black Americans are like descendants from Africa, because for Black people to exist in America, they have to be Africans that came to America. Even the Moors, you know, that supposedly came to England and America before Columbus, like, they're still Africans. Africans used to travel the world, you know, and go to different parts. That's how mutation started and other races were born. Moana is a great movie to show like how Africans go from one land to another. Even a white man from Europe has some probably, you know, percentage of 0.2% of African in him. Once again, that's why the whole FBA thing is just so ridiculous in the first place, or whatever. I mean, not the whole, not the group, just like what they stand for. The whole life started in America. Ridiculous because everyone comes from Africa. So to try so hard to separate yourself from Africa when everyone literally comes from Africa and you look really close to an African is just, it shows there's something else behind it, psychologically going on, you know.
Hey, Black Scottish cousins, I have a quick question from your Black American cousin whose family has been here through the French since the 1700s and through the African enslavement through the 1600s. Yes, I researched my entire history. I have a question. I just saw Roy Woods Jr. interviewing someone Black from the UK, and she said that they learn about Afro-Caribbeans, they learn about Africans from the continent, they learn about British history, Scottish history, etc. But y'all don't learn nothing about Black Americans? Nothing? Or if anything, the only thing y'all learn about is Martin Luther King? I mean, that's insane because that's mainly what all white people learn about here in America. But that's insane because as someone who went to an HBCU is a historically Black college and university. I also went to a historically Black high school, and we learned about Black people in different countries and their history. So there's an appreciation for the diaspora. But the fact that y'all don't learn nothing about us, that's a whole other issue of global anti-Blackness. That is wild. That would make sense why there have been so many diaspora wars online, because there's not an appreciation for something you don't know. Like, we understand why white people hate us because we've actually learned our history here in America. We understand where that hatred comes from. We understand why some white people really do hate us for our very existence. Like, we've done absolutely nothing. They just wake up and hate us. But now I'm learning through that interview with Roy Woods Jr. and the young lady from the UK that the main reason why there are conversations saying that we have no home, we have no culture, we have no identity is because y'all don't know us. Y'all genuinely don't know us. So you can't speak from a place of knowing because you really don't know. I really am grateful that Black Americans and Black Scottish people are creating a link of understanding and appreciation. But I still want to know what y'all be eating over there. Like, none of y'all have actually put up a plate of y'all soul food. Do y'all have soul food? We got all kinds of soul food. I'm from New Orleans. We have our own type of food, which is a blend of French, African, in some cases Native, in some cases Spanish. And we have formed our own Creole mix. Don't let them people tell you it's Cajun, because it's not. But anyway, what y'all eating over there, cousins?
Black Scottish versus Scottish. This is a question that, to be honest, when I ask my brothers and ask my cousins about this, and the first thing that comes to mind is I just think Scottish. And I've never thought Black Scottish. And I think it depends the context, right? Because if I'm on holiday, I'm just Scottish. If I'm in England, I'm Scottish. If I'm in Scotland, I'm from Glasgow. Do you know what I mean? And so, never ever considered this, but what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think Black Scottish? For me, only because of recently, Ncuti Gatwa comes up, Doctor Who, but that's very recently, you know? And Akala's mum, but she's not black, she's white, she's from, I think she's from, she's either from like Dundee, well, I'll claim her, she's from Glasgow, right? But that's not exactly a happy story. And I know there's a ton of Scottish artists. Brooke Combe comes to mind, Bems comes to mind. There's tons of talented young fathers, obviously. There's tons of Black Scottish people that are contributing, but they're not exactly a cultural export. That's why I think the Americans are confused, because they don't see them. We're not really represented anywhere. And to be honest, until recently, the last couple of weeks, we weren't like a monolithic block. You know what I mean? So, I don't know. What do you think about it? Am I missing it? Am I tripping? There's lots of Does Black Scottish mean something to you?
Our British cousins are clearly on the side of the family that we don't mess with. For once, can there be a trend that we hop on that's fun and exciting and somebody don't hop on here and mess it up and now it's getting on your damn nerves? And it's not all of y'all, but to the ones that are, why are y'all acting like such Karens? That's American vernacular. A Karen is someone who seeks attention, inserts themselves into situations that they shouldn't be a part of, and blows things up to be more than they should be. Here's the most hypocritical part. Y'all are upset that African Americans are in the comments section asking Black Scottish people if they're Afro-Scottish. But in the same breath, anytime a British person is around an American, what do they ask us? Where are you from? And we respond with pride, America. And y'all respond, no. Where's your parents from? And then we go, America. And they go, no. Your grandparents. America. Is that not the pot calling the kettle black? Do they say that there? You don't offend us when you tell us that our education system is trash. We have been saying it for years. I do not see our Scottish cousins getting mad that we're excited. It's people that showed up at a party that they weren't even invited to. So here's the thing, you're here now, but you're Black and you know how it works. Walk into this party, grab a cup, dap up your new cousins, kiki ha with the rest of us, and if you don't like what you're seeing, take your ass home and stay out the conversation.
When we talk about identity, it always gets complicated. Labels, categories, words that are meant to describe us often end up dividing us. And that is exactly what is happening in this conversation about Black Scottish versus Scottish. Because if you ask most Black people in Scotland, their first thought is simple. They are Scottish, no qualifier, no preference, no need to say Black Scottish. They are just Scottish. But the moment you introduce the global lens, the internet discourse, and especially when African Americans join the conversation shifts. It becomes not just about nationality but about culture, history, representation, and survival. For many Black Scots, the idea of being Black Scottish wasn't even in their vocabulary growing up. You were just Scottish. If you went on holiday, you told people you were Scottish. If you were in England, you were Scottish. In Scotland, you might break it down further. Glasgow, Aberdeen, Edinburgh, wherever you are from, the Black part wasn't necessarily erased, but it wasn't something people thought of as a separate identity block. And that becomes historical. The Black population in Scotland hasn't been large enough or visible enough to form that kind of monolithic identity. It's scattered, it's nuanced. Think about representation. Until recently, when you ask somebody to name a famous Black Scot, they did struggle. Maybe now people mention Scotty Gatwa because of Doctor Who. Maybe they will think of musicians like Young Fathers, Bems, or Brooklyn, Combe, but they are not yet cultural experts in the same way American hip-hop, R&B, or African American art is. That lack of visibility fits into why Americans, and even some Brits, are confused when they hear the phrase Black Scottish. It doesn't hit the same way as Black British or African American. Now, here's where African Americans step into the picture. A lot of Black Americans are fascinated by this conversation because in the Diaspora, identity isn't just about nationality. It's about how you survive the Middle Passage, colonization, Jim Crow, police brutality, segregation, and cultural erasure. For African Americans, the word Black is not just a descriptor. It's a culture. It's a lived experience that was created out of struggle. So when they see Black Scottish, they want to know what that means. Is it like Afro-Scottish? Is there a community? Is there music, food, culture that is uniquely Black and Scottish in the same way there is a uniquely Black American culture? And here's where the tension comes in. Some British cousins, as people call them online, don't like the questions. They see Black Americans in the comments asking, "Are you Afro-Scottish?" and they get defensive. They feel like Americans are trying to label them or force a conversation they didn't ask for. But here's the hypocrisy that Black Americans point out. Whenever a British person meets an America, what do they ask us? They don't stop at America. They say, no, where are you really from? Where are your parents from? Your grandparents? Americans answer, America. And they still push no before that. That constant interrogation of African American identity is now being flipped And so, when black Americans ask black Scots questions, some of them see it as a fair play. What is also important is the cultural disconnect. Many black British people can trace their families back just one or two generations to the Caribbean, to Africa, to Asia, to Nigeria, to Jamaica. They know their ancestry roots because their families migrated more recently. Meanwhile, African Americans don't have that privilege. Their ancestry is erased, cut off by 400 years of slavery, segregation, and systematic cultural destruction. That history is why black Americans feel such a strong need to defy and protect their culture, because it wasn't given to them, it was built under pressure, out of pain, and out of resiliency. So when black Americans see black Scottish people, there is curiosity but also kingship. And in most cases, it's not hostile. Black Americans are not trying to diminish Scottish identity. They are saying, yo, we see you. We didn't even know there was a black community in Scotland. That is cool. That is family. That the problem is when outsiders, people not involved in the cultural exchange, step into the conversations like Karens, they blow it out of proportions. They act offended. They create tension where there doesn't need to be any. And the truth is, that current behavior is familiar. The people who always insert themselves into cultural conversations, who tell people how they should identify, who try to gatekeep experiences they don't even live, that is where the frustration comes in. For once, black Americans are saying, can we just enjoy this? Can we just be excited to discover new cousins in the diaspora without somebody ruining it? Now, let's be real. Identity politics always tells emotions because identity is deeply personal. For black Americans, it's personal because their culture is their survival. It's the music, the language, the food, the slang, the traditions that developed after centuries of being cut off from Africa. Is why terms like African Americans are layered. They are not just about geography. They are about a culture born out of struggle. For black Scots, the conversation is newer. Hasn't been centuries of craving out a separate identity in Scotland. Many of them grew up just Scottish with the added layer of being black in a majority white society. The Black Scottish label feels almost like an external imposture, a newer discussion shaped by global eyes. But this is where the diaspora conversation gets beautiful if people let it. Because what black Americans see in black Scottish people is something they don't always get with black Brits in England. With black Scots, the energy so far has been respectful, reciprocal, curious. There is no competition. No, we are in a better than you. Instead is, hey, you have got your culture, I have got mine. Let's learn from each other. That is powerful because not all skin flog are king flog. Not everyone with melanella in their skin automatically vibes with you. But when you find people across the ocean who respect culture and let you respect theirs, that's worth celebrating. Still, there are cracks, and one crack is the lack of acknowledgement of African American culture as a real culture in itself. Some Brits brush it off, saying you are just American. But no, African American culture is distinct. It's not just a hot dogs and baseball. It's jazz, blues, hip hop, gospel, soul food, HBUC, Juneteenth, slang that shapes global pop culture, fashion that dictates the world. It's an identity that is as curated as any national culture, forged under impossible circumstances. When Brits dismiss that, it's not just ignorance, it's erasure. And then there is the pettier side, jokes about beans on toast, jokes about food, jokes about who can cook and who can't. They are silly but highlight the cultural gap. African Americans will always clown Brits for eating beans on toast because why? It's not serious, but it's part of how cultures rip each other when they are trying to figure other out. At the core of this debate is really the question, what does it mean to be black in Scotland? For some, it means being Scottish and being black at the same time. For others, it's about craving out a new identity. Afro-Scottish, something that acknowledges the Africa or Caribbean roots while embracing the Scottish nationality. And for black Americans watching from the outside, it's about recognizing cousins they didn't know they had, building connections and asking questions. Sometimes clumsy but always out of curiosity. So, are black Americans tripping? They are overstepping? Or are they just doing what everyone else does, asking, connecting, trying to understand? I did argue it later because when the British ask where African Americans are from, we don't get this defensive. We roll our eyes, we explain, and we move on. But we don't cut off the conversation, and that is the key difference. If you are a black and Scottish, and a black American cousin asks you about your roots, you don't need to see it as an attack. You can see it as a cane flock reaching out. And maybe that is the lesson here. We don't all have to agree on labels. We do have to respect each other's experiences. Black Scottish people have their own struggles, their own culture, their own contributions. African Americans have theirs. The overlap is not about sameness, it's about solidarity, because no matter where we are, in America, in Scotland, in Africa, in the Caribbean, being black comes with shared challenges. Racism, underrepresentation, erasure, marginalization, and being able to connect across those differences is what makes the diaspora stronger. At the end of the day, identity is fluid. It shifts depending on where you are, who you are with, and what history you carry on your back. In Scotland, you might just be Scottish. In England, you might be Scottish and black. Online, you might be Afro-Scottish. For African Americans, you might just be cousins. And maybe, just maybe, that is enough.
And if you watched up to this extent, don't forget to please leave me your own thought in the comment section of what you think of this video. And please do not forget that we do not support any form of bullying and harassment. We are just here for educational and informative purposes. So lovelies, why not just share your thought? Subscribe to this channel if you're yet to do that, and I will see you lovelies when I upload the next one.